Moms Without Time podcast. It's all too much and not enough at the same time.
Hello and welcome to Moms Without Time podcast, a show where two moms share their own experiences, thoughts, ideas, and tips on all things being a mom.
Hey there, friends. Welcome back. Today we are talking about baby sleep, what we wish we knew. Before we get going, we want to go ahead and update you guys on what has been going on with our lives and what's happening today.
Yes, today is Millie's 1-year birthday party.
I know! She turned 1 yesterday and today's her birthday party and I'm stressed out.
You're doing amazing. It looks really good. She's going to have tons of pictures. She looks beautiful. The family drove in from Houston to Dallas. So we're here in Dallas today. And we're just going to have some fun partying with the kids.
I'm going to keep it brief, but before I became a mother, I was very adamant about not having a birthday party for a 1-year-old. I did talk a lot of crap. And I'm so stressed about it.
I was a little offended about it too. I asked, so do you have any plans? And this is when you were pregnant.
I think.
Do you have any plans about the first year party? It's so, so awesome. I love to celebrate.
So big and
Monica was like, I'm not going to have a party. I'm like, excuse me? You better have a party for my niece.
I remember feeling like, why am I getting attacked? This baby hasn't been born yet. And even if I did have a party, it's so long from now. Literally, time has flown by and I'm stressed out of my life right now because small things that get forgotten are being done last minute. But
I feel like it doesn't have to be anything big, just celebrating their first year of life.
Yeah.
Such a milestone, like such a good way to just celebrate what God has given us, you know.
And aside from all the money that you spend on like the cakes and the food and the decoration, I'm really happy to see Millie hang out with her cousins. Mm-hmm. So this is like honestly an excuse to be together and have her see the family she doesn't see all the time, which is my family from Houston. Yeah. So I'm actually glad.
So that's also another reason why we named this Moms Without Time, because we'll be here literally recording this podcast on the day of Millie's party. But we're trying to squeeze it in there.
We have no time. So the little time that we get. We don't know what our kids are doing, but hopefully they're
having fun. Oh my gosh.
And talking about going into that, I'm pretty sure we're feeling a little stressed about the fact that we are doing a party and our kids need to sleep.
Yeah.
And I have the anxiety of like, is Millie going to sleep just enough time to wake up on time for her birthday party, or is she going to sleep too little and she's going to be cranky at her birthday party?
I know. The naps are like so important. And then I'm just like, Juliet's in a whole different place. Is she gonna have her nap here, Yeah. Do we need to go drive around? But so we'll see. We're gonna play everything by ear and try our best today. But that's an awesome way to jump into our topic. But before we do, we want to mention a very important disclaimer to you guys. We know that there's no manual on how to care for your baby. There's no one way, there's no right way, not a wrong way to care for them. So when we care for them, we always want to come with love, respect, and understanding for them.
And we just want to make sure that you know that this information is solely on our own experiences, our own research, and by no means are we saying that what we are telling you is the best way or what you experience or what you're doing is the wrong way. So we're coming out of love, and we want to make sure that you take that information in just that same way.
Exactly. And please feel free to take in what you think you need to based on your culture, your lifestyle, and your belief system. Most importantly, even after hearing all of this information, make sure that you always follow your child's needs, follow your mommy gut, your intuition, and always do your own research. I feel like baby sleep is such a controversial topic. People are on one end of the spectrum or the other one, and you'll hear so many things on Instagram and all these pages about it, but always just follow what you feel is right in your heart.
Yes, and we're not a podcast where we are dividing or creating a boundary. We just want to make sure that we share what we know and you take what feels right for you.
Yeah.
So what are some misconceptions about baby sleep that we had early on when becoming mothers?
I think for me, I always just thought babies would just sleep.
Yeah.
Like, I really didn't know all these things about wake times and I mean, maybe some of the fussy signals and things, but for the most part, it's like, oh, when they're ready to sleep, they're, just go put them down and they'll go to sleep. Yeah. Because I had seen some moms kind of be like that, and I guess the only really examples that I had was my nephews, but I was younger. I was like 16 when they were babies. So it's not like I really paid attention, Yeah. So I try to go back and think, what did my sister do? And I really don't remember, but I remember my nephews just knocking out, Yeah. Like really, they would just sleep
they
anywhere.
They were really great sleepers.
So that's what I thought my babies would do, and they are nothing like that.
Yeah,
so
100%. So mine is the pacifiers. So from the little research that I did, because I didn't do a lot of research for myself, but the little research that I did was a lot about pacifiers, removing the pacifiers. My kids having a hard time getting the pacifier and taking it away. So I always just had the fear of, like, if I end up giving the pacifier to my child, that would ruin her sleep, because if I didn't have one available, or if it was time for us to take it away, that I would never get any sleep back. So I had that misconception with mostly pacifiers. Now, as far as like sleep in general, I think I was the same. I can't remember a day that I've ever like babysat a baby that needed to be put to sleep, because I think I just always saw babies at parties. They were just like sleeping there in their stroller or on a chair, you know, and I really thought that that's how easy it was going to be.
Yeah.
Like, I'd go to this birthday party, just lay her there and just leave her there, and she'd be okay. But that's also not how Millie is.
If only it really actually was that way. But yeah, no, babies are much more complicated than we think. But they also aren't. Like, they give us so many clues, right? So we'll talk about that.
And also, we overthink it a little too much, maybe. Yeah. So I think that also, like, there's a kind of like a balance between what we were seeing before we were moms, and then also like what we're experiencing as when we're moms,
Yeah, and I think also like our I guess the way we were raised and the way we are raising our children is slightly different. Not that one way is better than the other, but it really is just different. Yeah. Maybe as a society there's a reason for that, but it's not the same, Right. But, so yeah, those are some of our misconceptions. So we want to talk about safe sleep practices. The American Academy of Pediatrics has some practices that you need to follow in order to, the most important thing is to decrease the incidence of SIDS. If you don't know what SIDS is, it's the sudden infant death syndrome, and it sounds so scary because it truly is, but there are some things that you can do that have been proven to at least decrease the chances of it happening. So we'll talk about some of these and talk about what we did, if we did follow these or not. So the first one is back to sleep for every sleep. This is a major one. Every time that you put your baby down for a nap or for bedtime, you want to place them on their back. So one of the things that they do say is that if they roll on their own onto their tummy, then that's perfectly fine. But just don't put them on their tummy. Right. So
I just want to, talking about that very briefly, I remember my mother-in-law telling me a couple of days in, like, I think 8 days after Millie's being born, she was like, just put her on her belly. That's what I used to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, gosh.
It's so hard to tell, I don't want to say the older generation, but I guess like that we are taught to do things differently because they always come with the mindset of like, my kids were fine.
You guys are alive, so.
Yeah, they always say that. So like we get it, but like we also want to follow research too. And I don't know, if you hear something and you don't follow it, it's something happens, it's like, oh my gosh, So I will say that for most, maybe like 98% of the time, I did put Juliet down on her back. There were some times that I put her on her side, but I was always awake during that time myself and doing something. Yeah. So I was watching her, and I'm not saying to do that. That's just something that I did. I didn't always 100% put her on her back. Yeah. She loves sleeping on her side. I never put her on her tummy though. But yeah, especially because one of the things that happens with a lot of babies is they have reflux. And so you think if they start choking on their own spit or the milk or whatever, and they're spitting it up in their sleep, like they're going to choke on their back. But it's actually proven that won't happen. Babies are really good at turning their heads when they're spitting up on their backs, and it's safer to put them on their back even if they have reflux. So that's always a fear, right? Because Juliet, oh my gosh, she was a projectile spitter. Like I have pictures, and maybe I should even post them. I have pictures of her when she was spit up, and it was sometimes during her sleep too, just projectile, just flying across, and it was a lot. Even our pediatrician was like impressed, you know. So she was never diagnosed with reflux, but she was just like, I guess, a really happy spitter and grew out of it. But still, place them on their back. So that's number one. Number two is use a firm surface. So you want to do crib, bassinet. You can even do your bed.
This one's a little hard because, like, for example, I have Tempur-Pedic style, you know, like the foam mattresses.
Yeah,
and
it's too soft.
Yeah, so they say if that bed is like, if you sink into it yourself, the baby can do just as easily sink into that. And if your baby does end up rolling at night without you knowing, there's no like space for air to go through.
If they roll on their side or on their tummy and their head is pushed in a little bit, then that creates problems with their breathing too. So always use a firm sleep surface. Breastfeeding is recommended. That's number 3. That's one of the recommendations from the AAP is whether you're breastfeeding through nursing or through pumping. They do say that decreases chance of risk SIDS. I don't know why. I'm sure there's more research behind that, but there has been a correlation to breastfeeding being more, I guess, better. But room sharing is recommended. So they do want you to at least have the baby in the same room with you. They definitely don't want you bed sharing, but if you can room share with the baby being in their own space, in their crib or their bassinet, if they are on the bed with you, make sure that you have no covers, no pillows, no blankets around them, and that they have their own space.
Right.
So that is so hard.
It is really hard, but the good thing is that a lot of the bassinets nowadays, well, I mean, I don't know back then, like I never even researched back then, but the bassinets now, like there's so many options, and then there's the ones that like will come to you and they will kind of sit over your bed.
Oh yeah.
So that you can almost like be hugging your baby, and then there's the ones that like kind of have a little the wall kind of lifts down, so where you can kind of be holding your baby and patting their baby if they do wake up.
You just roll over and pat their little bums.
Yeah.
But and if you do want to transfer them to their own room, then at least wait 6 months to do that.
Yes.
So I actually think I moved Juliet to her own room at 5 months. Actually, I'm lying because I didn't move her to her room. She kicked us out of our room.
Yeah, she was in your room.
She was in our room. My husband and I both snore really loud. And
very loud.
like we snore so loud. And she hates it. And so really she was not sleeping well. She was waking up every sleep cycle and every 1 to 2 hours. And so I decided, you know what, let me go sleep in the living room. And my husband ended up joining me over there. We made a bed in the living room because she literally kicked us out of our room, and she slept better. She slept so much better at 5 months. So
and that me and Victor does snore occasionally if he's laying on his back, but normally that wasn't why we moved. But Millie moved into her room at 4 months because I did find it that when we walked in, it would disturb her sleep and she would wake up. Yeah. So we just stopped walking in. We were like, she needs to be in her own room. And that helped a lot. Perfect.
Yeah. So, I mean, they do recommend at least 6 months if you can hold out. Like we've been saying, use your mama gut on that. And then we have some other ones.
All right. So the next one, keep soft objects and loose bedding away from the infant's sleep area. So kind of the same way of like putting your baby to sleep in a firm surface. We don't want anything around them that could create that barrier from between, their face and the air. And so another thing too is that if they're rolling around onto that, to that bear, that could also cause,
so even in their cribs, nothing. This includes the those side things that people put on the cribs, the bumpers. Yeah, don't use the bumpers in there.
Blankets. Sometimes I wouldn't necessarily say, but sometimes pacifiers come with the little nubbies
blankets,
and the the blankets that might be too long for a newborn specifically because that may get trapped on top of the baby,
and they don't even know how to grab and pull away.
Right,
so.
And if they're being swaddled, even more so. So, consider offering a pacifier at nap time and bedtime. So I definitely had a hard time accepting that this was going to happen because Millie had gotten a pacifier right at the beginning. Like 8 hours in, but it's fine. It's great, and it's helped her sleep. So I don't know why I'm still complaining. But it does help. It does help with bedtime and nap time. Not only does it help to soothe, but it helps with reflux.
Yeah, I really feel like society has placed such a negative view on pacifiers.
Yeah.
Like people will talk about a child if they still have a pacifier, and of course we know that it's bad for their teeth when they get older.
Yeah.
But we're talking about newborns and 3 to 6 month olds. Like it is such a good tool to use to help them during sleep, and it is proven that it decreases the risk of SIDS as well.
Yes.
So that's why it's one of the recommendations to offer a pacifier. Don't feel bad if you offer your newborn a pacifier.
Don't be like me. I've internalized that negative stigma, and I still can't get over it. Millie's like 1 year old. I don't know. I don't get it. Yeah. And then avoid overheating. Layers. Use a fan in the room to circulate air. I had this big issue with that because in our house we don't use the AC unless we really, really need to. Not because we're cheap, but just because we don't feel the need to have the AC on. We don't get like hot very easily. So when Millie was sleeping with us, I always the hormones, and I was like always sweating. I would wake up and I'm like, is she okay? Is she fine? And Victor would say, well, I'm cold. Yeah. And be like, well, how is she doing? And so we kind of have very different views on what it felt like in the room. Was it perfect for her? And
I feel like this is such a hard one to nail down.
Yeah.
Because you'll hear in the hospital that they'll say like, if mom's cold, baby's cold. If mom's hot, baby's hot. And it's like, I'm always cold. Yeah. And if I'm always cold, I'm gonna overdress her. Yes. And some babies run hot. So it's a kind of a hard one to nail down and know like, how many layers should I be putting on my baby? But another suggestion that they say is dress yourself and then add a layer to your baby.
Yes.
So it depends. And then one thing I do want to add is that the temperature recommended temperature would be between 68 degrees and 72 degrees.
Yes. I remember literally having it at 73 degrees. And I was like, I think that's the max, and that's where I'm going to go with, because 68 to me would be too much. So, but one thing that we want to mention with layers is like, also the type of material they're using in the season, So like I finally learned that Millie was born during winter time, and so it was a little more fresh, the air coming into the house, and so I did put on like warmer clothing. I didn't use all of this thin stuff at the beginning, and then as summer came in, then I would use a thinner swaddle and the thinner pajamas, and I think that also helps too, making sure that you're in the same way dressing appropriately in the season, but go to sleep.
Yeah, I think the most important part of this is not letting them overheat. So you can always even feel their little chest, when you're doing a diaper change or in the middle of the night. Oh, I remember diaper changes. Sometimes I look back at those times and I'm like, such sweet moments.
No,
but
I know.
Sweet moments, but you took away my sleep.
The sweet moments were, well, for me, just, FYI, like, it was a time where she would sleep in my arms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The diaper change, definitely no. The pumping, definitely no.
Yeah.
It was just, like, the fact that she finally fell asleep in my arms, and I'm like, oh my God.
So sweet.
She looked like a little burrito.
I know, so cute.
I do miss that.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Oh, and in this part, with the overheating, remember that a lot of times we swaddle the babies too, and that's considered a layer.
Yes.
So consider that a layer when trying to think of how you're going to dress your baby. All right, so we want to talk about the newborn stage of sleep and what we wish we knew and what we learned from then. For newborns, So we always go into babies thinking like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. So like, you know, put them on a schedule. But for newborns, there is no schedule to follow. Follow their leads always. Basically, they will sleep all day long. I remember one time, I feel like Maya, I swear she slept like 22 hours in one day. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I feel like she literally slept all day. Slept during nursing just to sleep, you know? So basically, they will sleep, wake up to eat, and then go back to sleep. That's basically, maybe have a little bit of playtime or like some alert time, but for the most part, just.
And when we say no schedule, there is no schedule like naturally for the baby, because of course we have the whole, you have to wake up your baby and feed them you know, so often. So of course we have our own, like, we need to nourish this baby. They can't just go on sleeping all day. But their natural state is to not have a schedule at this point. Sure.
So you don't want to like force them to stay awake for anything, or say you're going to eat at 3 o'clock and make them wait to eat. You know what I mean? No, follow their lead, but also do your interventions that you need to do, especially when they're first born, and they do lose. Oh my gosh, that's a big thing. A lot of moms don't know that their babies will lose weight. Up to 10%, over 10%, I think, is when they start to look into things, what's going on. But they do lose some of their weight in that first week, and a lot of times, and it's the worst timing, obviously, because if you're nursing, you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not feeding them enough.
I'm not producing
enough milk, and they're not eating, and they're losing weight, and
even if you know your baby's gonna lose the 10%, it still gives you a little bit of anxiety, because nobody wants to hear they're declining.
Yes, for sure. So that's why that first week they tell you, wake them up, feed them every 3 hours. It's not just for the baby, but it's also for your supply. You need to feed them every 3 hours. So if they have not, and it's been 3 hours since they ate, you need to wake them up.
And then they'll go back to sleep, like you said, and that's the schedule for the day.
Perfectly. So they do have day and night confusion. And so what I always tried to do was make sure that the day was bright, that the lights were on, that the windows were open, that there was noise being made, and then at night, quiet time, minimal light. I feel like that helped us never really have day-night confusion. With my kids, I never really did, but I made it a point to not let it be party time at night. You know, I know that some people will turn on lights or watch TV, like. None of that for us. You know, because
same for sure. I see that sometimes now, like babies who are like up at 1, 2 in the morning, and then like they're playing with the toy, and I'm like, I wouldn't want that for me. If I had to wake up in the middle of the night just to maybe like go to the restroom, maybe I needed some water, I want to make it as dark as possible so that I could stay drowsy enough to fall back asleep easily.
You don't want to get stimulated, and at that age, everything stimulates them. Noise, lights, interaction. And I'm not saying like ignore your baby. Like it's still like I was saying earlier, it's such a sweet time. The middle of the night, to me, middle of the night feedings, which is such a bonding time for me, you know. So you still want to have the interaction. I mean, you're going to be changing their diaper and feeding them, but you want to minimize as much as possible, and that helps with the day and night confusion. Because it's really hard on some moms or parents. That their babies will stay up for a few hours, and it's like, what's going on? So just try to help them figure that out.
And then also, like, kind of like a side thing that happened is that when we were implementing this for Millie, it helped me get ready for the day. Because if I was to do, wake her up and be, super alert in the middle of the night, then I wouldn't want to be getting up at 6, 7, at 8 in the morning to start my day. But it did motivate me to be like, okay, me and Millie are now going to start a day, and this is what I'm going to do is open up the blinds and show her that it's daylight. So it really did help me as well, because we're sleep deprived. So
oh my gosh, it was so hard, but so sweet. Okay, another thing are the sleepy cues, baby sleepy cues. Did you notice these?
Yes. Okay, so I was really nervous, thinking like I'm not gonna. There's a video, I think, on Instagram where people post a picture of a baby, like, can you guess the sleepy cues? And I'm like, I could not guess not one. But then I realized that I'm not those babies' mom.
Yeah.
You know, those babies' mom. So whenever Millie arrived and I could see it in her face, I clearly understood it.
Yeah.
And it was very easy for me to kind of like, I still doubted myself at the beginning, but it was always that gut feeling of like, no, I'm pretty sure that she's telling me she's hungry. And now I watch the videos and I'm like, oh my gosh, she was clearly hungry.
Yeah. There's an awesome video. I don't remember what show it was on. It was like some, talk show. And I don't know if I ever showed you the video, but basically, as a newborn, I think up until 3 months, they have a distinct cry.
Oh,
have you seen that one?
Yeah,
where,
I think so.
Where depending on how the sound that they make, it tells you whether they're uncomfortable, which is like being wet or dirty, whether they're sleepy, whether they're hungry. Yeah. We got to share that because that one helped me because I could hear it. I could hear it.
I think there's a YouTube video available that we can probably link. But I remember that too. Yeah. I will say though, I mean, I don't know if I got it as much as maybe because I don't know if you were watching this with Maya or you were watching this with Juliet. But Maya. With Millie, I was just like, I'm clueless.
It's too much.
I waited until Millie's cry was a little more obvious for me.
Yeah, so we'll try to find it so that you guys can see. I thought it was awesome, and it really with Maya it worked. So I was like, oh, I know what cry that is, you know. But even without the video, you'll learn your baby's cry too.
For sure.
You can tell. So some of the sleepy cues early. This is when you know that they're about to be. You should probably start getting them ready, doing your routine. So early signs. These are when they're getting tired. They have blank stares. This is for newborns up to
until now.
This still does the same thing. So blank stares. Their eyebrows do get a little bit red.
And this still happens even now.
Yeah, and they start looking away from you, so they're not as engaged with you, and they're just like a little out of it, just the blank stares and that. So,
when they're ready, they get really fussy, so they'll start kind of doing the little whine here and there. They have big yawns. I mean, humongous, like, it's so cute. Those are, like, the cutest, and they're just, like, stretching out, looking to the side, the big yawn, and then the red eye, they rub their eyes, and then the red eyebrows become a little more evident. If you miss it at the beginning, it continues to flare up until...
And then because they're rubbing their eyes,
and they're rubbing their eyes a lot. So at this point, they're not even engaged at all with what you're doing with them. They're not paying attention. They're ready.
Yeah. So if you follow their sleepy cues from the early stage of the sleepy cues to the ready, you should have, during the early, gotten the routine going. And by the time that they're at the ready stage, this is when you're actually putting them down. Yeah. When you follow this, I'm telling you, your baby will go down so easily. Yeah. Like, my babies have never been like the type to where we have to rock for hours or even longer than 20 minutes. Like, honestly, like maybe at the beginning when we really did this, and they're, newborns 5 to 10 minutes and they go just right down. Yeah. Even now, Juliet is about to be 15 months. We still follow the wake windows. We look for her cues, and she goes down pretty easily. Yeah. For naps and for bedtime. Yeah. So once you get to the late stage, though,
that's where your anxiety kicks in because they're overtired, overstimulated. They don't want anything to do with you. They're screaming. Their body kind of gets rigid and they kind of get tight. They push away from you. It seems like they're fighting the routine. And if you get to this point unknowingly, you might even kind of consider, are they really tired because they're fighting me to get into the routine and they're fighting to be put to sleep. So it's going to take much longer than the 20 minutes.
It's harder to get them to sleep if you're at this stage. That's why if you do it like on time, it's like such a charm. But then once you get to the late stage of the sleepiness, they fight it. Yeah.
And I will say, honestly, like I feel like looking back, I was definitely at that stage at the beginning a lot more. Well, maybe not at the beginning, but once Millie turned around like 2 to 3 months, and I was trying to implement like let her have more nap times in her bassinet, which I hadn't been doing at the beginning. She was sleeping on my arms, and that's when I kind of had that where like, oh, I think I waited too long because now she is really fussy and she is pushing away from me, or she's pushing to get comfortable, but she's just not finding that spot. So I remember looking back, I'm like, ooh. That girl is ready.
And that's another thing that you hear, like the generation differences is like, let them get as tired as possible and they'll just go right to sleep. And it's like, no, that doesn't happen unless it's like hours later, you know, like really, really just like dead tired. But yeah, so those are some of the sleepy cues to follow. We can like post some pictures and videos of what that looks like too.
Yeah.
I did want to share, I think we wanted to talk about like different ways that you could hold your baby, or different ways to get them to sleep. Newborns crave body contact.
Yes.
You know, they just came out of the womb.
They smell you. They only know you. So they don't want anything else but you.
Yeah, you're their safe place. So don't feel bad about holding your babies for naps. You know, you hear so much about like, put them down, they're going to become arm babies, they're only going to want to sleep with you. There's nothing wrong, especially as newborns. Cuddle those babies, like they're never going to be that age again, you know?
Yeah, I think that I remember holding Millie and feeling guilty, and I look back and I'm like, I'm so glad that even if I felt guilty that I still did it.
Yeah.
Because she knows mom is her safe space.
Yeah.
And it honestly, it helped me as a mom to understand her more early on because I was having that body contact with her as well. And I think that a lot of us don't think of that. Like, it is helping her, it is her safe space, but it's also helping us as moms get that bonding time.
Yeah, they release our own little endorphins from holding them, you know. So there's different ways you can do it. You can just hold them in the arms. You can wearing them if you want to get stuff done. I think you did this more than I ever did.
I think Millie was still a couple of weeks old when I got my baby the wrap, and then I would wear her all the time.
Yeah, I didn't really wear my babies.
And even now, Millie is a year old, and she will still be inside the carrier, and we go and shop, and she
that's so
does
cute.
amazing.
No, my kids don't like to be warm, but that's probably because I'm not a big baby wearer.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Everybody's different.
And then also some babies just might hate it.
Yeah.
But you can still try that way and see if that way is something that you guys.
That way you don't feel tied down to like sitting in one space and rocking. But I will say, even though you can hold your baby as much as you want, you still want to give them practice to sleep on their own, for naps. We're not talking about holding your babies for bedtime. We're talking about for your naps.
Please don't sleep on the couch standing up. That's bad for you.
We're definitely not talking about bedtime. We're talking about more for naps that you can hold them as much as you want. But you also want to give them time to practice sleeping on their own for naps, because eventually they're going to drop in naps. They're going to have longer, prolonged naps, and you don't want to be holding them for an hour and a half. We're moms and busy and have so much to do. And also, like, if your baby is going to daycare or some other program, they're not going to be able to hold your baby like that, you know? So give them the practice, at least, 1 to 2 naps a day of sleeping on their own.
Lastly, the dream feed. That was my favorite. So sometimes baby do need that, or how you feel like they need your breast to go to sleep, right? And that's their comfort zone. And then sometimes they wake up and they get hungry and they want to do that again. So if you want to prolong that period of time where they're asleep and kind of start teaching them to be weaned off from like having to be waking up every so often, what helps is the dream feed. And I did this with Millie, and it worked for us great. Like, it was great. It worked for me, having to set kind of a boundary between, this is a time where I'm done with my mom duties for now, and then Victor could take over if she did wake up. And then it helped us to give her that routine of like, okay, now she can sleep just a little push longer, and then the next day would be a push of even longer. So the dream feed basically is you put your baby to sleep, you give her the bedtime bottle, whatever the normal routine is for you, and then about an hour and a half to about 2 hours in, right before you actually have to feed your baby at the 3-hour mark, you come in, you can unswaddle your baby if you want to, or you can keep them swaddled. You'll go ahead and feed them, or so whether it's nurse them or bottle feed them, and they're still groggy. They're not completely asleep, so you want to make sure that your baby's not completely asleep and that you're forcing them to open their mouth or forcing milk down. But they're a little groggy and they'll take it. And as
you kind of wake them up.
You kind of wake them up in a little bit, but they're still kind of groggy. And as soon as you notice that they're done, they're no longer sucking, or they've opened their mouth and kind of moved away, that's the time that you set them back down.
Yeah.
And they'll stay, like with Millie, at least personally, she stayed down way longer when I would do that. And you do that normally right before you're about to go to sleep.
Yeah,
so
gives you a bigger stretch to
yes.
sleep. Yeah.
I don't know, some people, maybe when you get older, when the babies get older, but some people go straight to sleep after putting their baby down. I would have like tons of things to do, like bottles to wash and pump. And so I still had to be asleep maybe 2 to 3 hours later.
Yeah.
So I think it worked perfect for us because right after I did the dream feed, it would be my bedtime.
Yeah.
And I got that 7 to 8 hour stretch. And then eventually it did go to being a 12-hour stretch. And I dream fed Millie until she was 4 months.
If I have another one, I'm going to have to try that because I was always afraid of dream feeding. I knew about it. Yeah. But like I was like, I don't want to interrupt her and I don't want to wake her up, or like both of them. I never did the dream feed, but I feel like I did miss out on that because I always complain about losing my sleep. So I should try that.
And you don't necessarily have because a lot of the times whenever you are waking up your baby in the middle of the night, you kind of check the diaper and see if it's wet and change that. With the dream feed, you don't really want to do that. So if there is, you put them to sleep, and then the next time they wake up, that's how long you're gonna go changing the diaper, unless they are completely soiled. Then at that time you would kind of add that to the routine for a dream feed, but it's not needed. So.
Well, I'm gonna have to.
I loved it.
Oh, gosh.
Honestly, that's what I miss.
The dream feed,
really? because she was just so cute, asleep. She wasn't like crying or anything.
Oh my goodness. Well, as a desperate mom needing some sleep, what did you do? Like, what was the thing that helped you out the most, I guess?
Definitely dream feed, the swaddle, because we did try to go the route where at the hospital the nurses know how to wrap those babies like burritos, like so perfect. And Victor was really trying to perfect that for a while, but it wasn't until a couple weeks in that we were like, fine, let's use the swaddle that somebody gave us, and it did help. And then with us, we did have to try multiple swaddles because Millie was a
magician.
Yeah, she's just getting out of all of them, but it does help them stay asleep longer because they don't have that startle reflex that keeps waking them up. Yeah,
for sure. Swaddles for me, oh my gosh, so important. The white noise, dark room. So I want to talk about the routines that we had for our newborns. This is when I talk about like how sweet it was because let me talk about the bedtime routine. So what we would do is we didn't give her a bath every single day, but on the times that we gave her a bath, we did a little bath, lotion, read a book, swaddle, not swaddle, do the bottle. I'm trying to even remember, it's like 3 years ago. Do the bottle and then swaddle and then rock a little bit and put her down to sleep. So routines are really good at helping babies know it's time to go to sleep. It's time, and they kind of get used to it and know what's coming. For the middle of the night, if she would wake up, I would get her. I would check her diaper first before feeding her. Because this would help her wake up a little bit enough to where she would eat and not like go straight back to sleep with a little bit of milk and have her wake up an hour later, you know? So changing her diaper was really helpful to get her to wake up, and then bundle her back up and then feed her and then put her back down. I was always the type of person that I did everything on the bed. I didn't even get off the bed. I had the little halo bassinet. And I never really, as newborns to like maybe 4 to 5 months, I never really rocked them. I did the feeding and then I would just pat their backs a little bit. But I feel like helping not to rock at that age was helpful to like not them crave that as they got older, So that was one thing I did. And I think our routines in the middle of the night was less than 5 to 10 minutes and they would go right back down.
Yeah. And I know we're talking a lot about newborn, but I remember I did sway Millie standing a lot because I was not I'm going to sit in the bed. I don't know if it was really uncomfortable for me, but I would go to the rocker and I would do everything in the living room. And I do have to undress Millie and feet.
Oh, Millie was a sleeper. She's like you.
Yeah, she deep sleep.
She's just like
she's
you.
not gonna get up. Even now.
You had to wake her for a long time, yeah.
She would be up good 45 minutes to an hour just to do feeding time routine at night and then put her back. I mean, putting her back down wasn't the hard part at the beginning because she was already asleep.
Yeah.
By the middle of her feet, but so always like our routine was like going to sleep would be the same. You know, pajamas, lotion, diaper, read a book, swaddle, bottle, go to sleep. But in the middle of the night, it would a lot of it had to be swaying her back down because she did fall asleep very closely to me. And then the moment I feel like I laid her down, she'd be like, "Hey, Mom, I'm ready again." I don't think that Millie has a dependency on the rocking though. Yeah. Because now, especially when she's ready to go to sleep, and I go sit in the rocker, she doesn't want me to. So she wants me to lay her in bed. And then she'll go to sleep.
Sweet girl.
Oh, I love her.
Yes.
But yeah, so I think when you talked about making sure that you establish routines right now, they don't understand it at this time, but it also helps transition as they get older. Yeah. Because they know that this is a familiar feeling. Like, oh, my mom putting these really soft pajamas on me, or now that I hear my mom's soothing voice reading me a book, as they get older, they know that those are familiar spots in their time.
Yep. Routines are so important. Moving on to 3 to 4 months, we want to introduce a few things that that were helpful for us. Their sleep schedule definitely changes, so it's no longer like just wake up like following their lead. You actually do want to implement a little bit of a schedule, and that'll be helpful for them to sleep better at night. Yes. You want to do majority of the things during the day so that they can sleep well and you can sleep well. So one thing that we did that I learned about that I didn't know about, what we wish we knew, is the eat, play, sleep schedule. Yeah. So when they wake up in the morning, feed them. I mean, you change their diapers, of course, and all that. But you want to make sure that they eat. And then you want to have their playtime, and then you want to go straight to sleep. You don't want to feed them before they go to sleep. Yeah. This is what we did, and it was helpful for us because Maya was bottle fed, Juliet nursed, but it helped them to go down to sleep quickly without needing or being dependent on eating to sleep. Yeah. Which I understand that some people would rather feed to sleep, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there are some negatives to doing that, which includes like if you are feeding them to sleep or they have a bottle while they're going to sleep, you are more prone to ear infections. Like there's different things that can happen. They're more susceptible to be for it to be harder to wean them off of bottles.
They'll depend on that bottle to be every single time that you go to sleep versus like, hey, I'm eating to because I'm hungry. Yeah,
because it's time to eat. Yeah. So, I mean, of course, do it however you want, but this is what helped us. I felt like doing this schedule this way made putting them down stress-free and fight-free. Yeah. My kids never really fought me to sleep.
Because they were so tired. Yeah. Like, I remember Millie too, just like being ready after playtime, being ready to sleep. There was nothing that could hold her back from that. Versus like, at least for me personally, if I would have given her that bottle, I feel like she would instead look for that the next time she was ready to go to sleep, even though she could be just as tired. Yeah. And no.
But also like they would, if they would wake up early for whatever reason, they'd be looking for the bottle to put the back down.
We knew that they were ready to get up for specifically to eat and to start their next routine. So.
Yep. And then
sunlight during wake windows. So we talked a lot about this during newborns, but we want to make sure that we keep implementing this as they get older. So make sure that you take them to play in a lit area, maybe by a window, so that they can get that extra sunlight. Taking them outside. This is a time where I remember wearing Millie a lot more and walking up and down the street, and so that she's awake and seeing the outside and feeling the outside, and then that's also like a sensorial experience for them, and then getting ready to go back inside and it getting a little darker for them, knowing that they're about to go to sleep.
Yes.
So, starting a routine for bed and nighttime routine. So if you haven't already in the newborn stage, you're wanting to really get one down now. So if you are going to implement reading time, then reading time is going to be, you have to do it. I wouldn't say like every single time. There's times where you're just like stressed out and you're like, we're ready, I'm down.
Yeah.
Forget the book. But in the order of like diaper first, lotion next, pajamas, swaddle, and she's feeling that transition, making it easier for them to not fight you pretty much. Yeah. Because especially at this time, their awake windows are so much larger, longer, considering like the fact that they would go to sleep on your boob like 2 seconds later. Now they really do need to be kind of stimulated, and they do need to be told, okay, we got to get ready for bedtime.
Yeah. And then during this time, you do want to start doing what they call wake windows. And I did not know about these before I had a baby. No one told me about these. Like, and I'm sure, like, before, I guess, I don't know if this has become popular or if I was just clueless. Did people know about this before I became a mom? Like, what happened here? But yeah, I just found some stuff on, like, Instagram and searching, like, you know, things that could help me. There is a lot of different ranges that people will give, but they're basically around the same. I followed Taking Care of Babies a lot, but there's a lot of different help out there and people who have been doing this a very long time. So some of the wake windows as a newborn, like we said, it's enough for a diaper change, eating, going back to sleep. Starting around 4 to 12 weeks, their wake windows are 60 to 90 minutes. What this means is from the time they wake up to the time that they go back to sleep, they're ready to sleep within 60 to 90 minutes. And always read your baby. That's why there's a range, because every baby is different. So look for those cues. So that's when these cues are important, because not every baby is going to be 60 minutes.
Within that range, because I think that I had the hard time with that of like, okay, but it says 60 minutes max, and I'm like, Millie was ready at 45 minutes, and it was, or 40 minutes, you know, and sometimes I'd be like, can we push it a little, 15 more, but quickly you come to realize that it's within the range, but not necessarily always the mark.
So 4 to 12 weeks is 60 to 90 minutes. 3 to 4 months, they start to stretch that out to 75 minutes to about 2 hours. 5 to 7 months, it's 2 to 3 hours, and then 11 to 14 months, 3 to 4 hours, and then 14 to 24 months, 4 to 6 hours. So when we talk about wake windows, we want to make sure that you are using this time to play with them, to stimulate them, to help them develop, you know, get to their milestones, their skills. So you want to make use of this time so that they are nice and tired for bedtime.
So I kind of see this a lot where parents, the baby's ready to wake up, they feed them, they put him down to play, and the baby falls asleep at playtime. That doesn't mean the baby was ready to go to sleep at bedtime. It just needs that they need a little more motivation to play, because they do need more stimulation at this time. They do need to learn a little more about what something sounds like and what you can hear, and maybe more touching, so that they're not just complacent of like, I can be laid down anywhere and do nothing. You know, they do need a little more motivation, so you do have to be more present and you know, put some sounds or something that they can play with, or that they can watch or stare at this time.
And during this time, blackout curtains, I feel like, helped us out the most, because they are becoming a lot more aware of things. And when the light starts to seep in, they're prone to waking up a little bit easier. But I will say,
this is also controversial.
Because, you know, people are like, you are making them like, this is the only time they can sleep, you know. But I mean, it just depends on you, who you are, what you got going on in your life, if you're working, not working, you know. I
think the baby will adjust to whatever light you do put them into sleep, but I think me and you realize really early on that it's so much easier that they know it is a dark place because the confusion, you know, and we want to keep it we want to keep it straight, and we want to make sure the babies know when we were walking outside and looking at the sun, it was time to play, but we're coming back inside in a darker room, and it does calm them knowing that we're ready. There's no stimulation. There's no big bright light in their face. I mean,
and you can still have your outings. They will still fall asleep in the car. They will still fall asleep if you wear them, and it's their nap time. But it's just something helpful for them to get more restful sleep. If you know you're going to be home and you have nothing to do, or it's in your schedule, you can still do that. So it just depends on who you are and if that's what you want. But I honestly, with Maya, she had to have pristine conditions, my little first baby. And so with Juliet, I really tried my hardest to have her go to sleep in different conditions, because I was like, now that I have, a 2-year-old and she's a little bit loud and, we're doing more things, I don't want to be confined. And she still wouldn't sleep.
Yeah. And she needed that.
Sleep. Yeah. So I had to. Yeah. I had to change because she would not sleep.
Yeah. And I had the same thing. My room is just literally like the brightest spot in the entire world, and so I remember like, how am I gonna put Millie to sleep? I wouldn't even sleep in that room right now. It's so bright, So I was down to black out everything. Yeah. Put blankets over the curtains and stuff to make it dark. And she still good sleeper. She will sleep in the car. I don't have to like darken the car seat. If we're out, if we used to be in the park and it was ready, Millie's nap time, the soothing motion of the stroller would put her down to sleep just as easy. If I was wearing her and it was time for her nap, she would go down. So I don't think that it ever made it to where she needed it to be super dark unless we were just inside a house. Yeah. It was just easier.
Much easier. All right, well, let's talk about starting at around 4 months when they get to their sleep regressions. Oh my gosh. I feel like I knew about sleep regressions before having Maya, but I didn't know like what to expect. Yeah. Or like what to do to help.
Yeah. I think Millie was going through a sleep regression and I didn't really notice until towards the end of her sleep regression, because I was like,
why does this keep
happening? Why does it keep happening? Yeah. It doesn't, it's not very like the same for everybody. It's not like a common cold and you have all these symptoms and that's why you have the common cold. Yeah. A sleep regression looks different for everybody.
Yeah, for every baby. And but every baby does go through the 4-month sleep regression in one way or another. And what happens at the 4-month sleep regression is that they are transitioning from like the newborn baby sleep cycle to a more adult phase cycle. So the way that they go in and out of light sleep and deep sleep is different once they hit 4 months. So they start to have more sleep cycles than they did before. And when this happens, they actually will wake up more often because they're trying to get used to this change that's happening, to their sleep patterns. So it's really hard when you're used to this long amount of stretch of sleep, and then you get to, bam, a 4-month sleep regression, and they're waking up every 1 to 2 hours.
And I was going to say, normally whenever they do wake up, it's not like that they wake up and they're ready to play. Normally they would ideally go back to sleep from that awake cycle, but what happens is that they notice that they're not maybe in the same spot that you left them, or something's just not the right way. Yeah. And so they do get a little upset about that.
Yeah, or how they fell asleep. Like if they fell asleep at your boob and then you put them down because they're asleep and they wake up and guess what? Boob or pacifier even is no longer there. Yes. They're like looking for it. So just the way to get through it is to continue doing your best at keeping your routine the same. Making sure you're not, turning on the lights and making the sounds and just trying to get them to get back into that sleep. But they'll learn. It just takes longer for some babies, and some babies get through it really quickly.
I think the biggest issue that we have sometimes with the sleep regression is that we do think, oh, it's time to feed. And then now you're feeding them every 45 minutes. Yeah. That's definitely not true. At that one point, it's like maybe the first time they woke up, you want to check to see if they are hungry and if that's what they want. Time to eat or to drink their milk. But the second or third or fourth time after they've done that 45 minutes, you kind of know that they're not hungry. That's not the problem.
Yeah, and if you keep feeding them down to sleep, they're going to keep doing that because that's how you're putting them to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
So try to find other ways, patting their back, shushing, There's different things that you can do, and there's a lot of people out there, pages that have helped along the way, and we actually took a little course on that, on kind of what to do, and anyways, but that's a lot more in depth there. But just the main point is to try to keep your same routine going, and not introduce new things during that time. It will pass. They will learn how to get through it.
I think that's the most important part, is to remember that there's things that you can do to make it better, but you won't be able to avoid that entire regression. Like it's something that babies go through, and it's completely normal.
Yeah, so. Perfect. And then always remember as they get older that you're wanting them to get all their nutrition during the day. Mm-hmm. This is a big thing for why babies wake up at night, because they reverse cycle, which that means that they're getting all their calories at night. So they're waking up every 2 to 3 hours to eat, and then during the day they're not hungry. So if you're trying to push those calories during the day, they're less likely to wake up at night to eat. Yes.
So never divide your bottles. If your baby is bottle fed, never divide the bottles within the 24-hour period, but within the 12-hour period that they're awake.
Yeah, as much as they can tolerate. Some babies really can't tolerate more than 3 ounces at a time. Right. Some babies can do up to 6, and you just do the 6 ounces 4 times a day during the day, and that's their nutrition for the day. So. Exactly. And just quickly, some products that helped us at this stage were transitioning out of the sleep sacks. We used the
Merlin Magic Suit, which really helped Millie, because she still seemed to have that startle reflex that woke her up. With the sleep sack, she was able to kind of move and muffle the movement so that she doesn't completely wake up when she was trying to position herself. Yeah,
the Zippity, we use the Zippity a lot. That one helps too. It's so cute. It looks like they got little starfish, little arms. We used to call Maya the starfish. And she started calling Juliet the starfish. It was so cute. Starkish, that's how she would say it. But the reason that we transition into these products is because during this time, and even sooner sometimes, they start to roll. And once they start to roll, you do not want to put them in a swaddled up arms tied down,
because they will still roll with the swaddle on, and then now they won't have the ability to roll themselves back.
Yeah, or even pick their faces up with their hands if they need to. Yeah. So we're just gonna quickly keep moving through to the older months. Most of it stays the same.
The only thing that really changes is their awake windows. They become longer, and this is where you start feeling more exhausted during the day, because you realize that now I have to entertain my child a little more.
Yeah. But everything else pretty much stays the same. You want to keep your routines. You want to keep the nutrition going. One thing that's helpful around 6 months is to introduce, if you are using a passy, is to put more passies in their crib at night to where they can find the passies. And we did this with Maya. We would put 5 or 6 passies in her crib. She would wake up at night, find a passy, pop it in, and go back to sleep on her own. And that was amazing.
And I wasn't very consistent with that, but I did notice that Millie would look for the passy. And so I know the passy clip helped her, because it was still around the area that she was looking for, and she could kind of feel along the line of the passy clip, and then she'd find it and put it back on. And at that moment, you're looking at her in the monitor, it's like, okay, she's awake, but when she finds a passy, she'll go back to sleep.
Yeah, that was very helpful. Juliet never took a passy, and she never really took a bottle. So I think we had talked about it in the first episode, how Juliet doesn't really sleep, but or not that she doesn't sleep, she still wakes up. But I also think it's probably because she doesn't have a way to self-soothe, and so I can't offer her a passy because she won't take it. But so, like we were saying earlier, there's nothing wrong with passies. But and then they do have a second sleep regression around 8 to 9 months.
Yeah, I don't think that one's it's not as like prominent with the baby. I think that the same transition happens, but it's, as long as they have a routine in place, they have their passy, they're able to kind of soothe themselves back to sleep. You're not waking up as often. I would say that at least with Millie, she didn't wake up. The 4-month regression was like every 45 minutes. With the 8-month regression, I think she would wake up maybe twice a night. And of course, Millie's a good sleeper,
nice.
So
twice a night, that's nice. When Juliet went through this one, she was waking up every hour to 2 hours.
So yours was bad.
It was pretty bad, but because breaking up twice a night was like amazing for her.
Yeah,
you
right.
know? Yeah. So for the regression, it was like a lot. But the reason that they start to go through this regression too is because they're learning new skills during the day. And they might be learning how to crawl. They might just learn how to sit up on their own, pull up. And so they want to try to practice these at night. So a good way to get past this regression is make sure that they get enough of that practice during the day.
Yes.
So that, you know.
So I know a lot of people do transition out of the swaddle and then completely don't use any other types of materials like the sleep sack. And so this is a time when you'll kind of see that happening a lot more because, like, again, your baby is learning to crawl, not learning to crawl, but to kind of like move around. And so that this is what they'll be doing in the crib is kind of like scooting forward and that'll wake them up because at one point they realize, okay, I am tired. I'm trying to play, but I'm really tired and I'm upset.
And also, you'll see separation anxiety happen a lot more. So when they become aware of, oh, I'm not with my parents, if you know they're in a separate bed, when they wake up, it's like it's prominent to them that they're separated from you. You know, so all of the regressions, just keep doing your routine best as you can. Don't give in to getting up every time. That you hear a little whine. A lot of times if you give it a few minutes, they'll go back to sleep on their own. If you're answering their cries like right away, even and I'm not saying like if they're full blown crying to you know, but if they're whining, if they're a little bit fussy and they're tossing and turning and they get quiet and they fuss again, then they're probably trying to put themselves back to sleep, or at least they're not fully awake to where they need you. A lot of times they will go back to sleep on their own.
Yeah, I don't know if you use monitors, you can kind of always tell, look at the baby's eyes are still closed. You're like, okay, she's trying, and I'm going to give her that space to do it before I walk in and completely wake her up. Because I've done that in the past where I'm like super sleepy, and the natural thing that I do is just get up and go grab her, and she was still asleep, but now I've completely waken her up by grabbing her up. Yeah.
And I used to do that too, where I'm like, it's just so much easier to just go put her back down. Yeah. You know what I mean? Than to give her some time. But that helps them learn how to do it, but a gentle way, I guess. And then around 12 months, they start to drop naps. Well, I think around 8 months they drop naps, down to two naps. But just keep doing the same thing. The sleep routine. They start to sleep much longer periods of time. They definitely want the routines and the repetition of what you're doing during the day and at night, and keep doing the eat, play, sleep throughout all this is my advice.
Yeah, I think that with the dropping of the naps, that's when their sleep does consolidate and their naps do feel longer, because Millie wasn't the best napper ever. Her naps were always like 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour max. Yeah. Now, whenever we drop the nap to 2, it would be maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So, oh, thank God. But also, now their awake window is longer, and so you do have to do a lot more to establish, hey, I'm tired and I'm ready to go to sleep.
Yep. Perfect. Man, sleep. Oh, such a hard topic for me.
We all want some, but our the baby's always priority, especially in the first year.
Yeah.
I think they say like you'll lose like how many years of sleep throughout the first year of your baby's life. I don't even know. The amount of it is like ridiculous. So
yeah. It's hard. It's one of the things that makes, postpartum depression and anxiety worse. You feel like, what am I doing wrong in a lot of cases? And then you start hearing like you need to sleep train your baby, or you need to let them cry it out, and it's like you kind of wrestle with what you need to do. And like we've said, always follow your gut. Personally, I'm not the leave them to cry it completely out kind of person, but I'm also not, you shouldn't go in right away, right? So just whatever works for everyone.
Yeah, and I think this is also to say, like, if you do decide that you want to sleep train your baby, I think that, people always say you can't serve others if you feel like your energy is low. You got to take care of yourself first. So if this is something that's going to help you and your mental health to be, the best mom you can be for your baby, then you definitely want to make sure that you do that. And if that's sleep training, I think that's okay.
Yeah, that was me with Maya. I think we started not really sleep training, but we did do like a little gentle way of doing it. I always have in the back of my mind when people like, criticize things, because I'm like, okay, I did it. I feel good that we did, because Maya sleeps really well now. And we did feel more restful with Maya. But I'm just like, oh my gosh, I didn't really sleep train her to like let her cry it out, but we did give her those minutes of, it's time for you to know it's time to go to sleep. You know what I mean? So we did do that with Maya. With Juliet, not so much, because she was nursed, breastfed. And so it just felt like a whole different. Maya was bottle fed. It felt like a whole different thing to me.
Yeah.
But
I understand that because Millie is bottle fed, so I knew that if she did wake up in the middle of the night, I know it wasn't because she was hungry, because she had met her calories for the day.
Yeah.
So sometimes they do need you, and it is okay to go every single time and meet that need of like, hey, mama's right here. Just give them that reminder, but it does become to be a lot, and I think it is okay if you choose to kind of wait out a little bit, you know, because they also do need to learn and establish the, they have the ability to do it. We just kind of gotta remind them of
that. And their mood changes too during the day if they get restful sleep. So all right, it's time for our mom guilt segment. And since we're talking about sleep, we're gonna talk about like a mom guilt sleep style edition.
So I'm ready. Mine is the worst. Okay. I feel guilty for having a perfect textbook baby. So
everybody round of applause.
I know. Okay, I got lucky with Millie. So I still went through all of this, like the regression, the passing, the transition. She still needs the blackout curtains. Yeah. She's not the perfect baby where you could literally lay her down and she'd like fall,
fall asleep anywhere.
Sleep. Yeah. But as far as like the length of time that she sleeps is amazing. She does sleep 12 hours, sometimes more. Mm-hmm. And I did struggle with I was a mom who had to wake up her baby to feed her and to play with her. Mm-hmm. Like even for naps, she did only do the 1 hour, but at the beginning, even then, I would be like, Melissa, like, do I wake her up? Mm-hmm. Do I wake her up? I mean, it's like it's been 4 hours since she last ate. So so I have had a really great sleeper. She's like me. She takes that from me because Victor's pretty light compared to I could just snooze. Yeah. Okay. If I don't have an alarm, I don't even hear alarms. Yeah. Okay. Millie's the same way.
You've always been that way.
I've always been that way. Millie's that same way. I will go into her room sometimes and wake her up and turn off the sound machine, and she will still be asleep. Yeah. She's not ready. Yeah. So I have a textbook baby, and I do feel kind of guilty about that.
Because so many moms struggle.
Because so many moms struggle, and I do have mom friends now who are behind me. They have newborn babies, and they'll ask me, and I can give you like, hey, well, I tried this and I tried that, but at a certain point, I didn't struggle as much as they are, and so that kind of makes me feel a little guilty for feeling like I don't know how to help, or just at least to be like empathize and be like, oh yeah, I completely understand you at this time.
But I feel like also like I know you feel guilty because a lot of people struggle, but a lot of it comes down to the temperament of your baby and how they are too. You know, like we can't change certain things about them to even if you do everything textbook right. That doesn't mean that they're gonna sleep through the night at 4 weeks old, you know?
Or that I can tell you to use this or use that or try this and try that, but your baby may not be feeling to do that. Yeah. So I think with Millie it was kind of the same way. You helped me a lot, and there was a lot of things that you mentioned, but some of that stuff didn't stick with Millie either. You know, because she was just not needing of that, or this wasn't the way to go with her. So, but yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, she was kind of sleeping a lot compared to other babies, but like I said, she's not exempt from all the stuff.
Yeah, you still have the regressions, and she would text me sometimes like, "Oh my God, Millie woke up last night one time. I'm so tired." I'm like, over
that's
here.
why I feel guilty.
I'm like, how dare you? You know how many times I woke up last night?
And the problem is though that that's my life. So one wake up when it's like a random wake up is still a one wake up.
That's what I would tell you too. Is like you are used to sleeping solid hours, and so when she does wake you up, you do feel tired.
I don't know how Melissa does it. She has to drive after being awake for so long. I'm like, I work from home.
And when you run on E for so long, you're used to it. That's what I'm saying.
It's crazy.
But yeah, so my mom guilt is the opposite of that. Is that my baby doesn't sleep in the night. I have like a more normal baby. Because Millie is like amazing. But no, Maya did pretty well after about 9 months. Juliet still wakes up 1 to 2 times a night. And they are such different babies in terms of like what they did. And so Maya was bottle fed with my breast milk, and Juliet was nursed. She never really took a bottle. So Jonathan couldn't even help me out at night, you know? we tried because Jonathan absolutely loved his time with Maya at night. Like that has been always one of his favorites. He bonded really well with her during those times of bottle feeding at night. And so he didn't get that with Juliet, and I know that he missed that with her, but Juliet never wanted a bottle. Nothing we can do about that, so a lot of it fell on me, and he's very much enjoyed that.
He's like, wait, was I really complaining about this now that I'm catching some Z's?
I know, but he definitely still loses sleep for, other things. But, Juliet, I feel like I always gave in to going and getting her from bed because she was nursed, and I had so many insecurities about, is she eating enough during the day? Yeah. She get enough milk for me during the day? How do I know that she's getting all the calories she needs during the day? I'm doing all that I can to push it on her, to do that at least every 3 hours. But if she's still waking up at night, maybe she is really still hungry, And sometimes I would do things to kind of test that, like only offer one side. And if I only offered one side, she was not going back to sleep. Yeah. She wanted her complete feeding, hungry. Or, go in there and just try to put her back down without it. No, it's just not happening, And so I always felt like, and I still do, and she's 14 months, and she definitely should not be waking up to eat at night. Like, she's eating solids and all of that, but she's still waking up. Yeah. I don't know, maybe it's time to wean her. No, I'm gonna keep following her lead. But yeah, that's my mom guilt, is like, I feel like I am not getting her the rest that she needs, because she wakes up so much. Yeah.
And so I've gotten kind of a comment of like, well, she's such a good sleeper, why do you stress out? Because I still stress out. My anxiety is still pretty high. And I feel like it is illogical for me to have such a big anxiety about sleep, especially when Millie can go down and sleep for so long. But I think it's just because I want it to be a productive sleep session. Yeah. I don't want her to sleep to be disturbed. Yeah. Because I do see with Millie's temperament is that she doesn't have a good sleep. She will be cranky during the day. And I would rather deal with
the comments.
With the comments and have Millie wake up really happy and screaming and ready to play and have like a really productive day than to deal with like Millie, being a good sleeper but still trying to fall asleep in a not so great environment and then be cranky for the rest of the day.
For sure. And let me tell you real quick, since we talked about today being Millie's party and we're over here and we were talking about like, what am I going to do for Juliet to go to sleep? Well, guess what happened? She got overtired. And we were recording. We had to stop recording midway because my husband wasn't able to put her down. She wanted to nurse. She wasn't going to sleep. By the time I got over there, she was screaming. Yeah. So she was definitely past those, those sleepy cues. She was at that overtired phase.
And she still has, babies still have those cues even at 14 months. Yep. Yeah, she was still screaming and crying.
She still has those wake windows. It's like everything that we've been talking about to do for your baby to get them to sleep, we didn't do for Juliet today. And it was so apparent when I got there. Yeah. It took her so long to go down. She was fighting it. Oh my gosh. So, and we don't do that all the time. So, you have to live life too. But this just kind of goes to show that everything that we've been trying to do to get her good sleep is what has been right for her, because we wouldn't want her acting like this every single time, Yeah. So, that's a cool little tidbit. Not cool because my poor baby was overtired, but she went down eventually. Yeah. Took her a little bit.
So they're taking naps now. Yeah. And then we're recording, like Moms Without Time. Yeah. And then we're going to party later.
Let's go party. Yeah. Thank y'all for joining us. We're so excited to keep recording and talking to you guys and sharing all about us. And so hopefully you guys keep coming back.
Yeah. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then follow us on IG. Yep. Moms Without Time.
See you next time. Thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at Moms Without Time.
For more information, visit our website at momswithouttime.com and email us at connect@momswithouttime.com.